Charlie Kirk gets killed. The internet loses its mind, and one name keeps popping up in the chaos: Nick Fuentes.
Hitler, good guy, bad guy?
I'm gonna say I'm neutral on that. I'm abstaining.
You're saying that Hitler was not a bad guy?
If you only know him from the Kirk drama, here's the real headline.
I could go on InfoWars with Kanye West and say, I love Hitler, and not lose a single supporter.
Fuentes isn't just a fringe troll. He's a white supremacist and a misogynist with a pipeline straight into the brains of alienated young men. And he's become a genuine problem for the right that raised him, platformed him, and then acted shocked when he bit them back. The Groyper War with Charlie Kirk. In 2019, Fuentes and his fans, the Groypers, a far-right swarm named after a racist variant of the Pepe meme, declared war on mainstream conservatives. They targeted Kirk's Turning Point USA events with ambush questions about immigration, Israel, and sexuality. Heckling and laundered bigotry disguised as, "ooh, I gotcha." Turning Point USA eventually banned him. CPAC kicked him out.
I wasn't kicked out.
But by then, the brand was set. The Groyper War made him famous for a cohort of young men who think Charlie Kirk is too moderate and that women's rights are some sort of cosmic prank. Who he is and why he grew. Nicholas J. Fuentes, born 1998, Chicago suburbs. Smart, abrasive, and attention addicted. After marching in Charlottesville in 2017, chanting, "You will not replace us," he dropped out of Boston University and turned full-time to streaming America First, cultivating a fandom of alienated Gen Z conservatives. He's the archetype. Basement live streams to 500,000 views. Big talk about Christian nationalism, and a steady escalation from edgy jokes to explicit racism, anti-Semitism, and calls for an illiberal, anti-democratic order. For years, the right's strategy was, don't feed the troll. That failed. Under Elon Musk, Fuentes' X account was reinstated after years of bans for hate speech, and his following exploded. In other words, attention is the algorithm's love language, and he got showered with it. Here's some receipts, because details matter. Pre-Musk, Fuentes was repeatedly deplatformed for hate speech. YouTube terminated his channel in 2020. Twitter indefinitely suspended him in July of 2021. Then there was the 24-hour fiasco in January 2023. Twitter briefly reinstated him. He immediately praised Adolf Hitler and the Unabomber, and then declared Jews run the news. He was banned again the very next day. Then, in May of 2024, Elon Musk said he would reinstate Fuentes' account, provided he does not violate the law. Better to have him out in the open, he said. His account was restored on May 3rd, 2024, and the result was bigger audience, bigger megaphone. And that is what enablement looks like. What he believes. No euphemisms. Let's be really direct. White supremacy and anti-Semitism. He joked about the Holocaust as 6 million cookies. In July, he said Hitler had aura, and he's claimed white people are every single bit justified in being racist. Christian theocracy, not democracy. He pushes a white Christian nation built on a liberal rule, not Judeo-Christian pluralism. The ADL flat out labels him a white supremacist leader bent on forging a white nationalist alternative to the GOP and the January 6th pipeline. He stood just outside the Capitol shouting, "Never relent." 5 Groypers were later indicted. The FBI investigated him for months. There were no charges. But the movement overlap is so real. And hey, if you're thinking, isn't this just trolling? Even he calls some of it cheap rage bait. But that doesn't make the effect less toxic. Misogyny isn't a side plot. It's the on-ramp. So how does he get these kids on his side? Well, Fuentes has identified as an incel and has said women are baby machines. He's argued women shouldn't vote and mused that the optimal age for a wife is 16. Exact words. He even tried to brand celibacy as the only really straight option for a man because, his words, having sex with women is gay. Like... Then there's the tweet. Your body, my choice, forever. Posted November 5th, 2024, after Trump's win. He flipped the pro-choice slogan into a triumphant taunt. It didn't stay on X. It spread to TikTok and campuses. The Institute for Strategic Dialogue tracked an exponential surge in usage within 24 hours. Words have power. He knows exactly how to turn cruelty into a meme and then, I guess, a movement. The battery case and escalation. An issue here is that all of this isn't just online. In November 2024, after his home address was doxed, an activist approached his house filming. Fuentes pepper sprayed her in the face and shoved her down his steps. He then took her phone. He was arrested on November 27th and charged with battery, and then he appealed it in court. A month later, a separate incident, a heavily armed man, suspected of other killings that day, showed up at Fuentes' home and died in a shootout with police. Fuentes called it an attempt on my life. And yet, different story, very scary. But it shows the volatility swirling around his ecosystem. Trump didn't create him, he incubated him. Fuentes used to worship Trump. Then came the 2022 Mar-a-Lago dinner with him and Kanye. Yeah, real meeting of the minds that, huh? According to multiple accounts, Trump was really impressed with Nick Fuentes. Think about what that signals to a 20-something extremist and his audience. Later, though, Fuentes turned on Trump for being too soft on Israel, immigration, and for refusing to release the Epstein files, saying, Trump 2.0 has been a disappointment in literally every way. Well, hey, at least we agree on something. But the point remains. Access and attention are currency, and Trump gave him both, plus a permission structure for everyone else too. Why the right is now scared of its own creation. Mainstream conservatives thought Fuentes would burn out if ignored. Instead, he cannibalized their base. He sneers that J.D. Vance is a complete fabrication created in a lab by Peter Thiel, and he goads Trump world from the extreme right, daring them to follow. A political historian said Fuentes represents the cutting edge of a right-wing racism that surged with Trump. And he's growing because bigger right-wing influencers are fighting with him, not just ignoring him. The translation there is, he thrives on intra-fight beef and algorithmic oxygen. He doesn't need a Senate seat to shift the culture. He just needs your sums for you page. Back to Kirk and the cost of family values hypocrisy. After Kirk's killing, online sleuths rushed to pin the shooter to the Groypers, based on the memes and what was written on the engraved casings. Authorities haven't necessarily drawn that link. Fuentes called it a frame job. Regardless, the association was not pulled from thin air. Groypers have targeted Kirk for years, and several were inside the January 6 mob. When your movement nurtures a generation on cruelty, misogyny, and race baiting, don't be shocked that the public can't tell where the line between just joking and real-world menace actually is. And there's a bigger hypocrisy here in my eyes. The party of family values let their sons mainline a guy who ridicules women, mocks the Holocaust, and dreams of Catholic Taliban rule. They drew the line at drag queens, not Hitler had aura. That choice has consequences. Why lonely Gen Z boys are listening. This is where Fuentes becomes more than just one crank on the internet. He taps into a crisis among young men, especially Gen Z. Studies show they're reporting record levels of loneliness, disconnection, and lack of purpose. Fewer close friendships, more time online, less trust in institutions. And in a dating landscape reshaped by apps, skyrocketing inequality, and endless culture war shouting, you've got a demographic trying to listen to someone who tells them, you're not the problem, women are. Immigrants are. Jews are. Fuentes cloaks his bigotry in gamer memes, ironic humor, and live stream banter. And it's not accidental. It's a language that makes disaffected boys feel seen and then slowly funnels them towards white nationalism and misogyny. He sells them belonging in exchange for resentment. He's not offering solutions. He's offering scapegoats. And it sticks because when you're young, lonely, and online, belonging is what feels like salvation. This is why banning, platforming, and amplification matters. Fuentes doesn't need to be mainstream famous. He just needs to reach enough alienated boys to normalize hate as a lifestyle brand. He's built a scalable formula: irony, in-group jokes, misogyny, racial hierarchy, illiberal policies. The hook is emotional, loneliness, grievance, status anxiety, and the payoff is an identity. You're a Groyper. You see the truth. You're part of something. That's why bans matter. That's why amplification matters. That's why Musk and Trump's choices matter. Every time a platform reopens a megaphone or a politician shrugs off a dinner, that pipeline gets smoother. Nick Fuentes is a white supremacist. He is a misogynist, and he's a mirror. He shows what happens when a movement trades policy for vibes, morality for meme shares, and leadership for clout. The right made him. The platforms supercharged him. And now he's turning their base against them while pulling in a fresh crop of lonely, angry boys. If you care about your kids, your democracy, or basic human decency, take this seriously. Because just trolling is how it starts, not how it ends.